back again today with another one. As you can hear, my voice is a little coarser than usual. Yeah, so I'm just gonna try and keep it low. But be back with another one. I'm gonna be talking about 10 things I learned growing up in the ghetto as a youth. I grew up in Kingston, Jamaica, in one of the rough areas. I still go back every year, so I try to go back. But growing up in Jamaica, especially in the ghetto, it's a different experience. It's a different life experience. You see different things. Every single day is a different thing. It's a movie there. Every day is a movie there. Anyways, yeah, but there's a lot of things I learned, particularly about like human interaction, people just growing up as a youth, seeing certain things happen, experiencing certain things. It's just life is different down there. But here in Canada, Toronto, America, wherever you are, you have a different experience, right? Because sometimes some things are shrouded and not everything is as it appears. Anyways, let's get started with this, right? First thing I learned, or first thing I come to realize is, you mind your own business. You don't bother, you don't trouble nobody's business. You don't get in anybody's way and nobody gets in your way. You see something, you act like you're blind. You hear something, you act like you're deaf. You don't get in people's way and you mind your own business. That's the best way for survivability, for staying alive the longest, for like not getting caught up in unnecessary drama, is to just mind your own business, right? You didn't see nothing, you didn't hear nothing. If it doesn't affect you, your family, or your loved ones, then you don't know shit, right? This is, I'm pretty sure this is not even a ghetto thing. This is just black people in general, we just mind our own business. We don't see nothing, we don't hear nothing, we don't know nothing. I didn't see shit, but it's very true in Jamaica as well, right? You see, we have a saying in Jamaica: see and blind. If you see and blind, you're on deaf. If you see, act like you're blind. If you heard something, act like you're deaf, right? Anyways, next up. I don't know if these two things are related or if because people mind their own business. I don't think so. Anyways, the innocent will often suffer for the guilty, right? It's just like that saying, a couple bad apples ruin the whole bunch, but it is very true. Those who are innocent and are like free of free from prosecution and free from, they haven't done any harm or anything, more often than not, they're the ones that suffer. Just like, the saying goes, it's the good ones are the ones who die first, and that's in part because evil is deep rooted. Evil has a tendency to be like a cockroach, or that one thing that one mosquito or that fly you can't kill. Evil lasts for a long time. That's why I don't know, maybe that's why in some of these movies, like the witch is like some old lady that's been alive for like hundreds of years. Evil knows how to stay alive. It's the good and pure that have the problem with like longevity and stuff. It's the people who are good and have good hearts and they never trouble anybody, they don't bother people. Those are the people who usually get it precisely because they don't deserve it, But evil knows how to duck out and hide, so the good often suffer for the bad doers or the wrongdoers, especially growing up in Jamaica. A lot of the people who are just good, innocent people trying to mind their own business, do their own thing, get along with life, survive whatever, they're the ones who you hear about on the news suffering the most. Oftentimes, obviously, police catch criminals and blah, 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 right? But sometimes it's people who are minding their own business and not even paying anybody attention who get caught up in all this bullshit and drama, right? Next up is people oppress other people because they are themselves oppressed. Bad begets bad. People do bad to others because they've had bad done to them, right? And that's just a fact of life. You go to work and your boss gives you shit. You come home and you give your partner shit or your kid shit or whatever. You know, those are just like facts of life. You know, and it's something to be aware of because it's a cycle that you can break. Just because someone gives you shit doesn't mean you have to give shit back to someone else, right? Yeah, it's really crazy. People who are oppressed are often the ones who oppress others themselves or who have been oppressed in their lives, growing up as a kid or whatever. Those people are the ones who often come back and turn around to be an oppressor. But if you can find a way to break this chain, then you can be a person who can educate people and teach people and tell people this is not the right way to do it. You can become, a saving grace for a lot of people. You know, a lot of times you see people get, like in the system that I grew up in, the system itself is fucked up. You know, people are oppressed, people are suffering, people are starving, people are hungry, people aren't clothed, people aren't bathed properly, you know, and those people are still the same type of people that think limited. Oppression is a very limited state of mind. It's a very narrow state of mind. It's not oppression wasn't designed for like people who think oppressively or people who oppress others don't think in the long term. They think in how they can capitalize, take advantage of others, use others, and make other people feel bad for their own selfish gains. Yeah. Next is there's no such thing. I learned this from a fairly young age, probably around when I was like 9, 10 years old. There's no such thing as good or bad. Yeah. There's no such thing as good or bad. No one person is inherently good. No one person is inherently bad, right? Even the people that I'm talking about, and I call them innocent, even they aren't innocent, right? Everybody does bad and everybody does good, right? There's incidents that are good incidents and bad incidents. Some more than others, some more good than others, some more bad than others. But nobody's good or bad, and nobody is without sin, right? That's one thing I learned growing up as a kid, right? Everybody does something, or everybody, has done some form of, something. And if somebody's trying to convince you that they're not, be careful. Or you should just start running away, get as far away from that person as possible. Because there's no such thing as a good person or a bad person or a perfect person. We are all just human beings at the end of the day, and we're a culmination of a whole bunch of things, a whole lot of things happening inside our body at once, right? So none of us can be inherently bad or inherently good, right? All we can do is inherently, like, be ourselves or live our best lives, or, but there's no such thing as good and bad. Police, robbers, like criminals, drug lords, they're all the same people. They just wear different suits, different masks, and they choose to appear differently, act differently, behave differently. Some do more good than bad, some do more bad than good. But we could argue that good and bad are both subjective terms if you remove it from the confines of the law, right? The only thing that determines good or bad in this society that we live in is the law, right? That's where our baseline is, because it's conventional and we've been using it that's what we use to keep people in check, to keep society in check, to keep crime from going crazy. But if you were to remove the law subjectively, and there was no law, no organization, no nothing, then good and bad becomes subjective. It's just a matter of who you asked, Yeah. Next point is life is real. Life is really real. You don't really realize or recognize how good you have life until you see how bad other people have it, or until you yourself are put in a worse position than you were before, until you're forced to do things that you never thought you would ever have to do, right? You don't realize how good you have your life until someone else comes and makes you realize this is a blessing, right? It's life is real. like really real. Things that happen in life is like not just like because you are there and because you exist, right? Here in Canada, in North America, you know, it's easy to feel the passing of time to be something slow and sluggish, and it just happens. I'm gonna wake up tomorrow, and tomorrow's gonna be another day. It's easy to take those things for granted, but life is real, and when people meet the end of their life, is when it becomes the realest to them. It's when every moment suddenly matters more, every second suddenly lasts longer, because life becomes real and more real. The more you live is the more real life becomes, and the more life becomes real is the more life catches up to you. The more life catches up to you is the more you appreciate how real life is. But you can't fully appreciate how real life, how real life is until real life is about to end, right? Yeah, growing up, you learn that life is very, very real. You know, you see shit that happens, and there's people who were here today and gone tomorrow, right? Things happen, and it may seem like, oh, you know, this will never happen, but life is real. Don't underestimate it. So cherish your life and cherish every moment that you live for, that you have, because you never know when it could be your last. I know my voice is super low in this video. It's because I'm stuffed, but I gotta continue. I need to get a lav mic. I'm pretty sure that will make everything much better. Needless to say, hopefully it's not too low enough that you guys can hear me, but I'll edit it, turn it up, whatever. Next up is silence is your greatest asset. One thing you learn growing up in the ghetto is that you keep your lips sealed, talk less. You know, talking really does a lot of negative things. In fact, I would argue that talking, of all the body parts to have, talking probably is the one. Your mouth is probably the one that gets most people in trouble or killed. You know, talking is like a super unnecessary evil. And I feel like if human beings didn't need to eat food through our mouths, then we wouldn't have a use for our mouths besides to eat food. But like talking is completely unnecessary to communicate. You know, like it's studies show, and you know, I'm not gonna quote facts because you know I don't fact check whatever. But we all know and we all heard of studies that most, like 80% or 90% of communication is nonverbal. You know, like verbal communication only takes up like what 10-20% of all forms of communication. People can read your body language, you know, people can understand you just by mirroring or just understanding what's happening or just observing. But talking is never good. You know, talking, you only talk yourself into problems, and you can never talk yourself out of them. You can never talk yourself into solutions. You know, talking just it's not good. Silence is key. When you're silent, right? If you're in a room with a group of people, right, and you're silent, then you allow everybody else to share their ideas and share what they're thinking, right? By them talking, right, and talking and talking, and by you being quiet, you automatically start to absorb everything that people are saying without sharing anything that you know, or without sharing anything that you think, right? So automatically you start to become the most, I don't want to say the smartest person in the room, but you pretty much become the smartest person in the room the less you talk, right? Because you have consumed the mass of the knowledge that everybody is spitting out to you, right? Most times when people are talking, other people are talking over them. So nobody's getting any points across. But when you're quiet and you're just listening, you're able to absorb, right? Also, there's a difference between hearing and listening, obviously. Listening is taking it in and absorbing it, right? So silence is really the way to go in most cases, right? Sometimes being silent can save your life, you know, you never know. Okay, let's get down to our last 4. Don't tell people your plans, just execute them. This is a really big one, It's never let people know your next move. Just execute. Just execute. Just execute. Just execute. Especially if you live in a place where people are always nosy or in your business, and people don't really mean you any good. Growing up, I learned from a very, very, very young age that you don't tell people what you're gonna do. You don't tell people your business. Your business is your business. All you have to do is execute and do what you plan on doing, right? The more you talk, again, right? The more you tell people things, again, is the more people find ways to unravel your plans and throw wrenches into them, even if they don't intend for that to happen. Just execute your plans and move on. And when people see the results, they see the results, right? Chances are you're gonna do your plans or execute whatever you're gonna execute without them anyways. So you might as well just not tell them and do what you're gonna do, right? Next is your family is very trifling. Family is trifling in general, but they never leave you, right? No matter how bad or how shitty a situation gets, family is very, very trifling at times, but your family will never leave you. They'll always be there for you, right? So just keep that in mind whenever just keep that in your back pocket. Something to keep in mind and remember that no matter what happens, your family will always be there for you. Yeah, a lot of yawning today. Observe your surroundings and ask questions constantly. This kind of go hands in hand with silence is your greatest asset. But the more you observe, or the less you talk, is the more you can observe. Because if you're talking, you can't really be watching anything if your mouth is running, right? Observe more and just be aware, right? Growing up in the ghetto, I kind of gained like a heightened sense of awareness, just observing things and observing people, but that's just everybody that I grew up with. Like, we're all very, very finicky and very picky people because we observe everything and we observe people's body movement, their body language, and we interpret all of that and we form decisions based on our observations, not based on our conversations, right? We form informed decisions, as a matter of fact. Sometimes fight or flight decisions, sometimes life or death decisions, just by observing our surroundings and adapting quickly. Last but not least is your friends can sometimes lead you astray. So be careful with the people who you choose to call your friends, because those people can and often do at times lead you astray. And it's really rough because, like I said, your family is trifling, but they'll never leave you. But your friends will leave you, and your friends are sometimes trifling, and sometimes they're good friends, and sometimes they're bad, right? But just be careful who you keep in your close proximity and who you keep as your friends, because they can lead you astray and they can lead you down the wrong path, down the wrong road. And honestly, most of my time growing up in Jamaica, most of my time back home is a lot of people who, are close to me, or a lot of people who've passed or died or whatever. It's because they were led astray by other people, by friends, by people who told them, oh, I care about you, or people who were like, oh, we're gonna do this together, we're gonna make so much money together, or I have this plan or whatever. People lead you astray, and people lead other people astray, and when they're knee deep in shit, they won't think twice to throw you under the bus, right? Family is a different situation. It could still be the same outcome, but it's much less likely to happen with your family, whereas friends are completely different. Now, just to be clear, I'm talking about friends and not strangers. Sometimes strangers can be a little bit different, but people who are your friends, like you guys have been friends or something brought you guys together, like you met them through a mutual party or whatever, and you're friends now. These are the people that can lead you astray. Strangers is not. I'm not talking about strangers. I'm talking about friends. Okay. Anyways, this video is over. Hopefully, in the next video, my voice will be more projecting. But yeah, if you guys enjoyed this, leave a like, comment. Let me know what you want to see next. Let me know what you want me to talk about again. But yeah, these were 10 things I learned growing up as I get to youth. Oh, oh,